I was just saying, I'm in college. I had a Bible as literature class. We had to do a ending project. It was like a long essay, and I kind of I did it on. I thought it was kind of interesting, so I kind of wanted to get your guys' input.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, basically, I was using the scholars Raymond Brown, Bart Ehrman, and then I was T.J. Rye and someone else, where they look at Raymond Brown looks at the Gospels, the Synoptic Gospels, and how they increasingly make him more divine. I believe they said it was Mark. They write Jesus as someone who was adopted by God, and then in Matthew and Luke he was divine at his death. But I took that, and then I also looked back at the Old Testament, and when I was looking at T.J. Rye, I noticed that they said that in Genesis and stuff, the early Jews might have thought there were more gods than Yahweh. It was just that he was the supreme one. When they in Genesis, when he talked about making him like us or stuff like that.
Okay.
And so I wrote a paper. I wrote a paper saying that the theological progression that the early Jews had to do, they had to, or the early Christians had to go back over it when Jesus came into the picture, and then so the New Testament progressions of how to deal with Jesus in a monotheistic religion kind of mirrors those early the early Jewish progression of thought.
Okay. I mean, it's hard to comment without having read the paper or anything, but I mean, it sounds like an interesting, I guess, line of thought on it.
Yeah, I noticed that, in the one book, it's called The Birth of Satan, Tracing the Biblical Roots of the Devil.
Mm-hmm.
T.J. Rye, they talk about that the early Jews were, or at least a big part of them, when Genesis was being written, could have been thought of as henotheists rather than monotheists. And they described that as people who believed there were other gods. They were they only followed the one God.
Okay.
Okay.
And then I used that, and then I used their book to show the progression of Satan going from the what do you want to, the adversary, the prosecuting attorney in Job, and how the term was used as adversary on David, and then on Solomon, to show that as the devil, or as Satan became more of a transcendent evil figure, that's when the change from henotheism to monotheism happened.
Okay.
I don't know. I was wondering about if you guys ever heard anything like this, or ever thought or had any ideas. I know the guy last week, the call screener, he said I should talk to Matt or Tracy, but
yeah, I mean, it's hard to comment without having read the paper. So I mean, that's there's kind of a limit to what we can say. I mean, there's a lot of interesting books that are out there on different aspects of the Gospels and the stories they tell. And I mean, it's pretty clear if you look at the Synoptic Gospels, each of those Gospel writers had a specific audience they were talking to. They had a specific, I guess, view of Jesus and what his central message was. And they wrote books that supported that. And the books are, they're not always consistent with each other. But You know, if you look at them as storytellers trying to tell a story from a certain perspective, that makes sense. You know, if you look at them as a kind of an inspired word of God, they don't make sense in that respect because they're inconsistent enough that you can't reconcile some of those things.
Oh yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, that's definitely true. And one of the things I was learning about was like the culture around the early Christians and the people, but the other surrounding cultures that could have had effects on the evolving mythos of Jesus. Yeah. Like I read something about the Jews called the Essenes who wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls. They had a very their concept of evil was very similar to the first Gospels that were written. I think it was Mark was chronologically the first one written. Yeah. And so I kind of learned about those where there was even the time period between the New and the Old Testament. I kind of figured that there was there were parts of the surrounding cultures getting integrated in even while the Jews were becoming Christian. So I kind of wrote that in the paper and about how like I just said that how they had effects on the stories.
Okay, cool. So what grade did you get?
Huh?
What grade?
I got a B because I stink at grammar.
Oh, okay.
Oh, well.
But she really liked the thesis and all that stuff, so I had a talk with her, and
awesome.
She said if I would have did better on the grammar, I would have gotten an A.
Yeah, well, you know, there's the spelling and grammar check in Microsoft Word. You can run it through that.
Oh, yeah.
Some things are just...
All right. Well, we got some other callers online. I want to get to some theist callers, so I'm going to let you go, but thanks for calling.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, congratulations on your paper.
Day.
You too.
All right,
bye. Bye.
Glad the teacher was receptive to that, because that was my concern. I'm like, I wonder what they were thinking.
Yeah, that's what I was like, okay, I don't know what they thought about it. Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Take that B.
Yeah, that's right. But hey, using the spell check, the grammar thing in Microsoft Word, that's solid advice. You guys should do that.
We are not sponsored by Microsoft.
That's right. We don't get any money from them. So